It was actually at 10 weeks the baby stopped growing, and at 12 weeks we found out, because you don't get to have ultrasounds every week, so you don't know. And we had seen the heartbeat, and I knew that the miscarriage rate dropped once you've seen your baby's heartbeat, and so I wasn't afraid. So when I...
This is hilarious.
I want to talk about a few things in this video. Obviously, Vegan Gains' disgusting reaction to this. Just his detachment with humanity is just so unbelievable. It really is. I'm going to share my experience with miscarriage, and I want to talk a little about spirituality as well.
I cannot sympathize with this at all.
Family members who have had miscarriages too. And that helped me realize that I am not alone, and this is so common, and it's something so many women experience. But I do
Yeah, good. We need fewer children. Hope more people have miscarriages.
think that more women need to talk about it so that it doesn't feel so lonely.
One of my miscarriages was at 9 weeks, one was at 12 weeks. And the one that was at 12 weeks was worse. Like, the further along you are, the worse it feels, because the more attached and all of that you become. And also, well, if you believe in, spirituality and the human soul and all of that, some people believe that they don't receive their soul until they are birthed into this world. That really doesn't make sense to me, because, well, the first thing that forms on an embryo before it becomes a fetus is the heart. And Vegan Gains, that's what he keeps talking about it, like, first he said it's a month old, then he's like, okay, 10 weeks. He keeps trying to deflect and act like it's not a big deal because it was only a few weeks old or something. 10 weeks, that's almost 3 months from there. So I feel like when the heart forms and it starts beating, the moment that heart starts beating, I feel like that baby has a soul. Probably before then, probably at conception, but I'm just saying, like, if we're gonna get technical here and get down to it, at least by the time the heart's beating, okay? Because everything goes after that. Everything else starts forming. And then I think technically it becomes a fetus, becomes, as definitions go, at 12 weeks, something like that. So they say the miscarriage is less likely to happen after the first trimester. So you would be 12 weeks, and then everything's good to go. You got the green light. That's when a lot of women wait till 12 weeks to tell everyone, because they're less likely to have everything stable. The baby is starting to grow. Like, if something were wrong, if something is going wrong, usually before that first trimester ends, the body figures it out and eliminates. When I went to 12 weeks, it was so ironic too, because we had went out, it was Thanksgiving, we went to families, and I only had my daughter at this point. I hadn't had my 2 sons yet. And I was 12 weeks along. I thought everything was good to go, and I wasn't really waiting necessarily. I didn't feel fear that something like that would happen. I had heard of that before, but I thought I wanted to wait and just tell people in general, just because it was new and fresh to us as it was. So we go for Thanksgiving over to family's house. Everyone in our family is there. One of my husband's side of the family. Relatives that we don't usually see all the time, things like that. And we're like, guess what? We're going to have another baby. We tell everybody right then, that day. And almost immediately, this is how crazy this is. Almost immediately, I go to the bathroom and I start spotting. And I'm like, I didn't think anything of it at first. I just thought, sometimes that happens at the beginning, because they say, when the egg is implanting and all of that, which this would have been further than that, but sometimes they're spotting. It's not good when it starts you start bleeding more and more, obviously. And then the bleeding gets worse and worse until it's pretty obvious that something is wrong. And, yeah, go to the hospital, and that's what it was. You know, I was miscarrying the baby, and I don't know, I told myself when that happened that we just weren't ready, weren't financially stable enough yet to have another kid. We had other issues going on, and it put me in a bad place. I was really depressed. I kind of was in denial about it, though. Like, I didn't confront how I felt about it, but it was so traumatic that it made me want to leave, and I tried to split up with my husband and all kind of stuff. And actually, that's what led us to Kentucky, because I left, and I was running from my feelings instead of going through that with him. You know, I was like, oh, I'm fine with that. I'm just, you know, we don't need to be together. And so I left. I came up here, and then eventually he came up here after me, and then we got back together. And then after I had Christian, my second, I had a miscarriage after that. And so that was sad, and, you know, all those feelings, still terrible, but I felt like it was less traumatic because I was a little more mature, I think, and in a better place with him as well, so we could actually feel and understand that we needed to process those feelings together and get through it together. So that helped, but and then I wasn't as far along. So the thing about it is, Vegan Gains was saying that we're just so selfish, like people like us, that we feel sad, well, because of hormones, and also because we're selfish, like, oh, dang, now I don't get to have that baby that I wanted. If that's the case, though, why does someone who goes and gets an abortion, or someone who wasn't planning to get pregnant, accidentally gets pregnant, didn't want it, but then they have a miscarriage? Yeah. So how come those women seem to have the same sort of emotions, the same sort of feelings of loss? Explain that one to me. That's not what you're thinking when you're going through that sadness and all of that. You're not thinking, dang it, now I don't get to have that baby I wanted to carry around like a purse. You're thinking, now I don't get to meet this little human that I started to begin to love. Yeah, there's a feeling of loss. Like there was someone there, even if it was this tiny clump of cells, as Vegan Gains says. It had a heartbeat. You know, it wasn't a full-grown baby, of course, not yet, but it had a spirit. You know, it had a soul. It had a connection to you that's just unexplainable. And it's not just hormones. It's not just hormones, because you don't feel those same feelings of loss and whatnot when you're, you know, your hormones are a little imbalanced, or you're going through things. Women go through hormone fluctuations all the time. Things like that. Postpartum depression, that's another one that you could compare it to. You might be depressed because your hormones and all of that stuff, but it's not a feeling of loss, of death.
So, like, this is a woman who's against abortion even before the kid, even before the fetus is sentient. And here she is. This happens to so many women. Like, holy fucking crap. Like, her god apparently aborts more fucking kids than Planned Parenthood. But then she has a fucking problem with someone aborting their kid within the first fucking month of pregnancy.
This happens to so many women that makes it somehow... You see how he keeps trying to minimize it? Like, just because so many people get shot or stabbed to death, what are you crying about? This happens to so many people. He keeps bringing up the God thing. I do want to address that. But first, I want to point out that this is Ben Shapiro's sister, in case, you know, some of you don't know who she is. She goes by Classically Abby. So, obviously, she's very conservative, very pro-life. Now, this little baby you're looking at is a molded figurine These are actually pretty cool. My midwife had them, and it's also cool for the kids if you have other kids that will be siblings. They can hold them and look at them and see about what it looks like while it's in your tummy, and just it gives them a better grasp of what's going on. So it's kind of cool. I do want to put a trigger warning right now for what I'm about to show. I'm going to show some real fetuses around this age that she lost her baby, and their skin is usually more translucent. So, I think it's several months in that they start getting skin that isn't, well, translucent, see-through. So, you know how I feel about trigger warnings. I feel like you can't control your environment. You never will be able to. So you need to be able to feel your emotions and really observe and self-reflect on what it is you're feeling and why you feel that way and process it. And then just learn how to better manage. But if you've recently had a miscarriage, it may not be time for you to see this yet. So I do want to show it though, because Vegan Gains keeps talking about this clump of cells as if it's just like cells coming off of your body like skin flakes or, going to the bathroom. So ridiculous. So along with all of that loss and pain that a woman feels, she has to actually see it, physically see it, and it looks like a tiny little human, because it is. Imagine that.
Where's your God now? Why is she upset if this is God's will? What the fuck? Yeah, this is God's will, Abby. Your God did this, so why are you so upset? It's so funny.
I don't know why atheists do this. They act as if living in a cruel world somehow debunks God or debunks that we have a creator. I mean, that says nothing about this is the world that was created. I don't know why it's unfair, quote unquote, or bad things happen. We don't fully understand this as humans. There's lessons learned in all of this, in every painful moment. There may be a good explanation for this. Just like there's good explanation for all of the pleasure and satisfaction and happiness. But honestly, when it comes to the miscarriage rate, it seems to be increasing. That has something to do with health, women's health, and issues in our environment that are just presenting more and more. As a matter of fact, the 2 miscarriages that I had, I always got the feeling, I was still in the military at the time, with both of them actually. The second one was right after I left, I believe. So I'd still had the shot from, the flu shot before I left. And I remember thinking this specifically. I remember thinking, okay, I have to wait a year after this shot, and then I'll actually be able to get pregnant and hold a pregnancy. So many women live to tell the same exact tale. I don't know if it's a coincidence. Surely it has something to do with some of these. It's all over VAERS, it's all over Facebook book posts and things like that. I actually know someone personally who had a stillbirth. No, I know 2 girls actually. One was like a couple weeks after her shot, so I don't know when it was that she got hers. But my point is that, there's many environmental factors to this. Nutrition is one of them. If you're deficient in certain things, your body just can't produce everything it needs because a baby requires so much to grow. Another thing with the topic of shots is there have been like independent labs that have tested certain ones. I can't verify whether this is 100% true or not, but they have found levels of the HCG hormone in them. And, the thing is about the HCG hormone that increases rapidly when a woman becomes pregnant. It tells your body to hold on to that fetus and to help it grow instead of, eliminating it as if it's not supposed to be there, as if your body would do with anything that isn't supposed to be there, that's foreign, So if your body's producing antibodies to the HCG hormone, which is what a schmack-sheen, what they do with the viruses and things like that, they put in with them, your body starts producing the antibodies, and they know to attack that when they see that in the future. So if this theory is true about the shot topic, with the HCG hormone being put into that, and then when you get one for a certain length of time, which is what I always felt like, for a certain amount of time, it was almost like taking a birth control shot. It's like your body, you get pregnant and your body's like, nope, that has to go, and your body's attacking it.
Thank God I was with my whole family for Passover. So everyone was there, which for me was really, really helpful, and it meant I had a ton of support. I wanted to talk about a few things in this video. I wanted to talk about some things for women who have gone through this or...
Does she feel lonely whenever she takes a shit? Like, I just still cannot sympathize with this at all. At that point, like fucking 10 weeks, it's nothing. It's a clump of cells. It's arguable if sentience has arisen in the fetus at all by that point.
Sentience is the ability to perceive or feel. So you tell me, Richard, please explain to me why a chicken's life is more valuable than this little tiny human.
And then she's like crying over it. Like, do you cry over your own shits? Like when you take a dump on the toilet, like a massive big chunky shit, do you, like, when you flush it down, is it hard for you to flush down a part of your body, something that was inside you? I don't know, it seems pretty stupid to me. Vegan Buddha donated $2 depression. You don't have good enough reason to be depressed, yet you are. That is a false analogy. What? I never even claimed to be depressed for any particular reason. Being sad over something that's stupid versus having, like, probably what's a medical issue. Two different things. I get depressed as well, but it's pointless if we are going to continue living. Okay, thanks, retard, for the idiot comment.
So let me explain this comment. This vegan Buddha guy or girl came in earlier and politely tried to explain to him that it's perfectly natural and normal for a woman to feel sadness and depression and that sort of thing with a loss like this. Because prior to this, he was saying how nonsensical it is, that she irrationally feels sadness for this when she opposes Planned Parenthood, as if that's the same thing as nature or God miscarrying a baby. And because it's a clump of cells, as he keeps saying, so she shouldn't have any sort of feelings toward this. It's so dumb. It's so irrational. He keeps saying this. And so the same person came back and was like, well, you don't have any rational explanation to feel the sadness you feel when you're depressed. You clearly are. You hate people. You hate life. So much to the point that you're trying to find pleasure in sickness like this. Because you can't understand how other people feel happiness. And he's calling her and people like us who have children breeders. And how we're so selfish. Yeah, like no thought is going into this. We just want a baby because it's, hormones and all these. He even acknowledged this. Hormones are part of it. Something he clearly doesn't have. So all these things that make people irrationally want a baby and not think about the consequences on the world and if it's going to even better the world. You see, none of his reasoning or arguments make any logical sense, because how can you possibly know what your child is going to grow up to be? They could be Bill Gates, or they could be, Albert Einstein. Furthermore, he calls it selfish because there are so many children that need homes, which is true. And some people feel that calling more than others. Most of us naturally are just more inclined to give birth to our own flesh and blood. The love comes naturally, things work out smoothly, and thank God there are few and far between people that are willing to go that extra mile and adopt or foster a child. Thank God. Because, as we can see, this world is cruel. Not everything works out perfectly. But for the most part, for the general population of people who are healthy and happy, they end up wanting to have a kid. I want to end this by saying I wish we could gather enough people like him. And there seems to be a lot of vegans that are misanthropic in this way, where they think humanity is a cancer on this world. And I just wish we could figure out what makes a person become like this. You know, what shapes their reality this way, where love is just so foreign to them. You know, the love that I feel like most people naturally have within them and feel towards other humans, even other humans that aren't related to them, strangers even. You know, the desire to want to help people, believing in nothing in this sort of way. It doesn't make sense to me why they even care to help this world. You know, what motivates them to do that even? Maybe it is deep within them, but they can't even figure out where it's coming from. Well, surely it is. But yeah, it's just so, it's beyond me. And like he kept saying, he can't relate. I can't relate to him. But I wish we could study this. I know he didn't have a father growing up. That surely is an aspect of this. But yeah, that's all I got to say. He's going to be miserable probably for the rest of his life. Now what do I do with my legs? What do I do with my arms? You know, Ricky Bobby. Okay, never mind.